Hey guys, welcome to another FIFA 19 career mode budgets video. Earlier on today you will have seen La Liga and the Premier League. If you haven't seen the La Liga or Premier League videos, do check the channel page for them. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well so that you don't miss out on the Serie A one or any further career mode content. I've got a lot coming your way over the next few days and then subsequent weeks and months post full launch. This footage, of course, brought to you by the EA Game Changers program. They very kindly flew myself and a number of other YouTubers out to Berlin to record plenty of videos ahead of time for you guys to enjoy on the run-up to early access coming out on the Xbox on the 20th. But we shall start here in the Bundesliga now and get cracking with the expectations and the transfer budgets for all of the teams involved. As was the case with La Liga, the budgets aren't comparable to the Premier League, as is the case every year, of course. In England, the sides have the luxury of the Jesus knows how much money that gets thrown into the TV rights, etc. So budgets are inflated in England, and to be fair, transfer budgets are inflated worldwide due to that. But we shall start here in Germany now, and starting with Nuremberg, a side recently promoted, £5.7 million available for them to spend. That's not going to be a lot. You're going to struggle with Nuremberg. You're going to need to concentrate on the off-field things before you decide, that's a word, before you decide to address issues on the field. But once you've got a solid financial backing, hopefully you'll get a bigger budget season 2 and you should be able to challenge in the top half. But starting off, just avoiding relegation is probably the main aim at Nuremberg season number 1. Slightly higher ambitions at FSV Mainz. They finished 14th last year, just 3 points above the drop zone, but should be aiming for a mid-table or higher mid-table finish than that in year number 1 at Mainz. And then, fingers crossed, if you're any good at the game, which I know a lot of you are, you should be challenging for top half and then subsequent European. It's kind of a 3 or 4 year project at Mainz. Small budget, but definitely doable in my opinion. And you might well have a 3 or 4 year plan in mind with the next team, Borussia Dortmund, although that might be for multiple trophies rather than just trying to not get relegated and finish in the top half. Borussia Dortmund with a £63.6 million budget, having lost a couple of players over the summer and past season or so. Obviously, Aubameyang going to Arsenal, Socrates going to Arsenal. They lost Andre Schürrle as well, who's a decent player, to Fulham. We'll have to wait and see what happens with regards to Borussia Dortmund. High domestic and continental success, critical brand exposure, medium youth development and low financial. 4th only last year for Dortmund in real life. Improvements needed, I think, both to the squad and to the overall individual and team performances. So a challenge at Dortmund, it has to be said, more so than in previous years, especially having lost Aubameyang, and Marco Reus has a downgrade overall rating-wise too. After Dortmund, we have our second of the promoted sides coming up from the Bundesliga. It's Fortuna Düsseldorf. You're not going to need to do much with them. Very low expectations domestically. Basically, sell a few shirts, don't lose too much money, and you'll be all right. You'll keep your job. Just maybe try and stay in the league, and I think the board will be happy with you. Up next, Augsburg. £8.6 million budget available to you there. Critical that you do well financially at the club. Improving their overall club value and the general financial stability of the club is the main aim. 12th last year for them in the Bundesliga. Not too far away from the top half. Not too far away from being a handy side, Augsburg. But certainly could do with some improvement in year 1 to ensure that you get a top half finish in that first season before perhaps pushing for a Europa League spot in season 2. You aren't, however, going to want to be anywhere near the Europa League with the next team, Bayern Munich. Surprisingly, quote-unquote, low transfer budget here of £105.9 million. With the sale of Arturo Vidal to Barcelona, there is a hole in that central midfield that will need plugging. You do have the funds to fill it, but perhaps not massive funds to fill it with the highest of quality players. Critical success demanded across the board on the pitch and brand exposure wise off the pitch. Medium youth development. Basically with Bayern you've got to win everything if you can. Pep did, and you've got to do the same pretty much. So best of luck. We move from the B's into the E's. It's Eintracht Frankfurt up next. Domestic and financial success set to medium. High expectations set to brand exposure. £17.5 million. Actually quite a decent budget for Eintracht Frankfurt. 8th in the table last year. only a few points and a few places away from a European spot. So definitely aiming for Europa League finish Season 1 and then taking advantage of that new licensing, of course, in Season 2. You might have a harder time with things at Hanover, although the budget is very similar, £16.6 million. 39 points they finished on last year in 34 games. If they want to finish top half, if you want to finish top half with Hanover, you are going to need 45 plus, I would have thought. So squad needs improving, and medium domestic success means that you will need to improve. And improving, again, is what you're going to have to do at Hertha Berlin too. They finished 10th last year, of course, with 18 teams in the Bundesliga. That's slightly outside the top half. Mönchengladbach in 9th, finishing in the last top half spots. But Hertha Berlin, a decent team. Of course, long gone are the days of Adrian Ramos banging in the goals in that one season that he had a phenomenal year. High financial expectation there at Hertha Berlin. So you are going to have to concentrate off the field initially. But you do have the money to add to the squad. And theoretically, you should be pushing for top half. If they can finish 10th and one spot out it in real life, you should be able to go one better in FIFA. And also wanting to go one better will be Bayer Leverkusen, finishing 5th in the Bundesliga last year, although level on points with Dortmund and Hoffenheim, who finished 3rd. So going one better would actually take you up 2 places to 3rd with Bayer Leverkusen. Decent budget of £40.5 million. We did a series with Leverkusen recently, and it was good. I think I probably wasn't as successful at Leverkusen as perhaps I should have been. So make of that what you will. High domestic success expected though, so you will have to qualify for the Champions League if you want to keep your job. Do concentrate on that youth development as well, as that's also set there to a high priority with the board. Only the one high priority at Borussia Mönchengladbach, that being brand exposure. As we mentioned earlier, down in 9th for them last season. Not good enough for Borussia Mönchengladbach. Decent stadium, decent budget at £22.6 million, decent expectations, medium across the board other than high brand exposure. Finish in the top 4 and the board will be delighted with you. Finish outside the Europa League spots and your job might well be in danger at Borussia Park. Don't let yourself slip up, otherwise you could be jobless. And you might be jobless too if you aren't able to get Rasen Ballsport, for legal reasons, Leipzig into the top 4. They finished 6th last year, just 2 points away from Bayern, Dortmund and Hoffenheim, all on 55. Just the 53 points for Leipzig last year. So they are close to being regular Champions League contenders. But will you be able to get them over the edge? I think with £55 million, the answer is a quite certain yes. High domestic success expected, high youth development success expected as well, which is interesting, especially considering they have the financial clout at Leipzig to be able to buy in the players, but clearly they still want to improve through the youth ranks, and you will be expected to do exactly that if Rasen Ballsport Leipzig are the team that you decide to take forward in the Bundesliga for FIFA 19. Up next, Freiburg. Youth development, very important there. They just scraped above the relegation zone last season, finishing in 15th, 3 points ahead of Wolfsburg. You will be expected to do better than that, though, in this first season, although concentrate on those kids, and maybe they might be able to lead you to glory later down the line than Season 1. You should, however, be challenging right from the off with Schalke, runners-up in the Bundesliga last year. However, you are going to be without Leon Goretzka, their star player last year, who now, of course, has transferred to Bayern Munich. High expectation domestically, youth development-wise, and with brand exposure. And in the Champions League again for Schalke, medium expectation there. So probably, I don't know, probably what? Just get out the groups, maybe, and they'll be happy with that. Reach the round of 16 in the Champions League. You should be finishing in the top 4 every single year with Schalke, though. And with the squad they have, in a season and a half, you should be challenging Bayern after 3 transfer windows. Towards the end of the second season, you should be challenging Bayern for that top spot in the Bundesliga. But Schalke, always a good, fun team to play with. The Veltins is a beautiful ground as well. Let's see if any of you decide to take on Schalke and see if you can topple Bayern at the, well, top. Hoffenheim, another team that tried their absolute best to topple Bayern. They finished 3rd, which is great. The only problem being they were 29 points away from Bayern Munich. So still a lot of work to be done. £26 million available to you. High youth development expectations. Medium everywhere else other than brand exposure. Do well on the pitch. Like Europa League, I think they'd be happy with. And being in the Champions League is actually going to be very important this year, because you do get more money for getting out the group stage, or even just competing in the group stage of the Champions League than you have done in previous years. More than twice what you got last year, in fact. So do keep an eye on that throughout the year, because it's going to be very important once you get into those European spots that you stay there for the financial future of the club that you're managing. A side whose financial future shouldn't be too much of an issue, though, with low financial expectations, is Stuttgart. Promoted not last season, but the season before, back into the Bundesliga. £26.4 million budget. They finished 7th last season, which is very impressive. They, too, were just a handful of points away from Hoffenheim in 3rd. They were on 51 in 7th, with Leipzig 53, and then, as mentioned, Bayern, Dortmund and Hoffenheim in 5th, 4th and 3rd respectively, all on 55 points. So it was actually quite close in the run for those Champions League spots. And to be fair, I don't know whether I'd expect the Stuttgart squad to challenge like that again this season, or whether perhaps they overachieved last year. You guys will have to let me know in the comment section down below what you think of that. I'm not entirely too sure off the top of my head, but moving forward, you definitely want to be trying your best to replicate at least that 7th spot. If not, perhaps pushing for a Europa League spot in the league with Stuttgart Season 1, so you can then improve the financial situation, get more shirts sold for the brand exposure, and then maybe challenge for top 4 season after that. What on earth happened at Wolfsburg last season? Surviving thanks to the relegation playoff, low expectations continentally as expected. They finished bloody 16th last year. Medium success expected domestically. I thought that would have been high, to be fair. Wolfsburg should be pushing a lot higher than 16th in the league. They should be challenging for European spots year in, year out. You have a £38 million budget available to you, so you will be able to challenge both on the pitch and off it in the transfer dealings. Do better than they did last year, and I think the Wolfsburg board would just be pleased not to have another season like last year, to be completely honest. So, okay squad at Wolfsburg. They really shouldn't have been where they were last year. They did draw a lot of games last season. It's going to be a case of turning those 1-point hauls into 3-point hauls and shooting up the table. And shooting up the table will be the aim of Werder Bremen as well. However, it might be slightly more difficult there. Finishing 11th last year in the Bundesliga and £12 million available for you transfer-wise. High financial expectation. You're going to want to make sure that you have a bigger transfer budget for Season 2. Whether you get that from challenging for a Europa League spot in Season 1, I'm not sure. Maybe a nice run in the Deutsche Pokal could get you some extra funds, although I'm not sure how much money would be available from a domestic cup run in Germany. So you're going to want to try and grow the players you've already got. Maybe invest that 12 million in youth, make it a long-term project at Werder Bremen. They were threatened with relegation in recent years. Were able to avoid relegation thanks to the efforts of an on-loan Kevin De Bruyne a handful of years ago. He has obviously gone on to flourish, and maybe Werder Bremen under your tuition could also go on to flourish in FIFA 19. Do let me know in the comment section down below if you're planning on doing a Bundesliga series this year. I probably will, but who I would use, I as of yet am unsure. We shall see how things transpire throughout the season. Perhaps there'll be a team in real life that kind of overperform, and we might want to try and replicate that in FIFA. Time will tell on that regard, but I will be starting with Tottenham Hotspur on full launch. But drop the video a like here if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel too to make sure you don't miss out on any more. The Serie A one will be out later on this afternoon. Earlier on today you will have seen La Liga and the Premier League, so do check the channel page for those videos if you missed them. And starting tomorrow will be the Manchester City one season showdown career mode. All or nothing. How many trophies can we win? We will find out. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time.